Were they pushing the note? Am I going to
What do you want it?
This would be great. 45 degrees.
Yeah, so when you have Here, Don, let me get us going.
Mic test 1 2 3. 1 2 3 microphone test. Well, good evening. This is the 6:30 p.m. press conference here on the Kincade incident in Sonoma County. My name is Jonathan Cox, Division Chief and Information Officer with CAL FIRE Incident Management Team 6. Just quick housekeeping items. If we could mute our telephones and take any conversations that we may have in this room outside during the press conference. As normal, there will be a Spanish language version of this press conference at the conclusion of the English language press conference. So if you need that, please stick around. I just also want to note that we will have times for questions and answers at the conclusion of this. We're fortunate to have a variety of agencies, organizations, and representatives here, and we will have time for Q&As. With that, just a status update from where we were after this morning's 10 o'clock press briefing. Maybe most significantly around 11:30 today, the decision was made in cooperation with Napa County Sheriff's Department and the City of Calistoga to implement an evacuation warning in Napa County for the Calistoga area of northern Napa. And that was due again to fire activity and moving in that direction. We can confirm that additional structures have been destroyed and damaged in this fire. We have damage inspection teams on the fire right now going methodically through the entire fire area to get a better count and a better number of the type of structures. Unfortunately, we had 2 firefighter injuries today. They were both burn injuries. The first one appears relatively minor. The firefighter was taken by ground ambulance to a burn center. The second one was more significant. The firefighter was airlifted and flown to UC Davis Medical Center for burn injuries. We do have additional resources coming into the area. This includes in resources from outside the state of California, the National Guard, and additional cooperators from within the state. I will just read off the latest facts for the fire before we get into our speakers. We can confirm the fire is now at least 54,298 acres. Containment has unfortunately gone down to 5% from 10% this morning. We can confirm that we have 94 structures that have been destroyed and 17 structures that have been damaged. Of those, the composition between residential structure, outbuilding, and commercial will be forthcoming. We still have just under 80,000 structures throughout the area that are still threatened by fire. And to deal with that, we have over 3,400 firefighters on the line. As far as evacuations go, in Sonoma County, zones 1 through 10 are still a evacuation order, and in Napa County, zone 21 is still an evacuation warning. With that, we are going to do like we did this morning and get an update from the National Weather Service. I'll hand it over to our incident meteorologist, Brian Walburn.
All right, good evening. So once again, we did have very challenging weather conditions out on the fire lines today. We did have recorded wind gusts on the order of 75 miles an hour as we move into the wind event, as we look into Tuesday night into Wednesday. And right now, unfortunately, we have no rain in the forecast through the end of the month. Thanks.
Next will be our fire behavioral analyst, Steve Vollmer.
Good evening. With the new location of the fire, we're continuing to see the erratic fire spread along with long-range spotting as it continues to move. We're still modeling the fire behavior on the west side of Highway 101 as well as the fire behavior in the current area where the fire is burning. When we have the wind shifts that will occur tomorrow afternoon, that's going to greatly aid the firefighting effort. It's going to decrease the intensity of the fire, decrease the flame lengths and the rate of spread, and allow us to go after it a little more aggressively. However, it will wind test the northeastern section of the fire up in the high country. We will see increase in fire activity again Tuesday evening when that other system comes through.
And for an operational overview of what is actually occurring on the line right now, we have Incident Commander Mike Blankenheim. I'll turn it over to him.
All right, good evening, everybody. Quick recap of where we were at this morning. So both the weather predictions and the fire behavior predictions proved to be extremely accurate today. The wind surfaced around 1 o'clock this morning and brought the fire out of the hills here and across Highway 128 at around 3 o'clock this morning. At about 11 o'clock this morning, the fire was impacting the 101 freeway between Windsor and Healdsburg. So from 11 o'clock this morning till now, fortunately the fire has not crossed the 101. The wind is kind of lined up in a more northerly direction and is pushed straight south on the east side of 101. Currently the fire edge is somewhere just south of the community of Windsor near Shiloh, where our resources are actively engaged in both perimeter control and attempts at structure defense.
And before we let the Incident Commander back to the command post, are there any questions related to operations for him? Okay, perfect.
Thanks, Chief.
With that, we'll hand it over to Sheriff Essick.
All right, good evening. So we've been getting a lot of questions up tonight about evacuation. Are the evacuation orders still in place? Yes, they are. So all the areas that we have ordered to be evacuated earlier still remain in effect. The way that you, the public, can keep up to date on evacuation orders is you can text your zip code to 888-777, that's Nixle, 888-777, text your zip code, and you will be updated on evacuation orders and when we start to repopulate areas. But we are not there yet. This afternoon I had a chance to take a look at the fire from the air, from the Sheriff's Office helicopter, Henry 1, and I can report to you that this is still a very active fire. And so our decision to make evacuation orders was well warranted. The fire approached the northeastern edge of Windsor. The CAL FIRE teams and the firefighters and public safety people on the ground there did an amazing job in an effort to stop the fire before it entered into the town of Windsor. Their efforts were incredible, and right now we are very happy that it appears that the fire is at the edge of Windsor. Now, things could obviously change, but so far the efforts there have been very valiant, and we're very, very happy and thankful. Because of all the evacuations that are going on, we have had a lot of feedback at the Sheriff's Office about what's happening, what is the Sheriff's Office doing to help those evacuees understand, keep them educated about what's going on in the community. So we took a little visit today. We went to the large animal shelter here at the fairgrounds and visited with some folks who had to evacuate their livestock and their larger animals. And there's certainly a sense of fear out there. A lot of people have questions about what's going on. So again, we want you to follow the Sheriff's Office on Nixle, and you can stay updated there. Secondly, we went to an evacuation center at the Santa Rosa Veterans Hall right over here across the street from us. And I have to tell you something. When we make a decision to move 180,000 people, it's a decision we do for public safety. But when I was in that shelter today and had a chance to talk to people and see the real impact of having to sleep in a room this size on cots, having uncertainty, having to eat sandwiches that are maybe not their best sandwich choice, it really puts a fine point on the impact here. And so at the Sheriff's Office, we really appreciate that. We want to get people back to their homes as quickly as possible. We understand there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of anxiety and fear out there, and people want to get back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are doing the right thing by keeping you out of these areas. The evacuation was the right decision. It still remains the right decision, so we need you to cooperate and stay out of those areas. Your life is our priority. It's my priority as your sheriff, and right now it's still too dangerous to enter the evacuation zones. As we've heard, winds are still very unpredictable. We will get you returned as soon as it is safe. We still have over 200 peace officers in the evacuation areas. We are looking out for your property. We're looking out for your homes. We're looking out for looters. We have not had any arrests for looting, but I do have to report to you that today we did make an arrest this morning for re-entry into an unauthorized area. So what happened is we had a person enter an evacuation zone with no apparent business there. When questioned by police, he was unable to provide a residence in the area. And based on that, we made an arrest. Now, I've told you earlier that we're going to be very aggressive with looters. And because of our presence, we have not had any documented cases of looting. But we're also not going to be tolerant of people entering evacuation zones for no apparent reason. So we did make an arrest today. I'd be glad to talk to you offline about that in further detail if you have questions. So stay informed. There's a lot of questions out there still. We want you to follow us on Nixle. We want you to look at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We will keep you updated. The sheriff's offices have been here for you. We've got our people in the field. They're working hard. Our deputies want to work. They want to be there to protect you. They're tied to the community just like you are. So please, if you see a deputy in the field, you have questions, contact them. They're there to help you. They're there to provide direction and assistance. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from the California Highway Patrol Chief Noyes.
Good evening, everybody. Tim Noyes, Assistant Chief Highway Patrol. I just want to thank everybody for their patience. We understand the magnitude of this entire incident, and it has been really appreciated by us and the patience that everybody has had on the traffic. I can tell you the 101, especially on the south end, has been flowing very well for most of the day. It is open right now. I can tell you that as of right now, we are opening the southbound 101 completely. Unfortunately, we do have to leave the northbound closed for a little bit longer, and I do not have an estimated time of reopening. We continue to still bring in a great deal of resources throughout the entire state to try and help you out. And the only other thing I just want to keep reminding you is it has been windy. There's still a lot of debris out there. It is dangerous on the roadways, so if you are driving, please continue to stay alert. Watch out for those traffic signals that burn out and treat them as stop signs, and just try and remain safe out there. And we will try and help you out and keep you flowing as quickly as we possibly can. Thank you.
Our next speaker representing the County of Sonoma is Supervisor Riley.
Thank you very much, and I can't let this opportunity go by without saying a great big thank you to everyone who's come to our aid in Sonoma County, whether you're here locally, volunteering, firefighter from the county or law enforcement officer from the county or from without. Thank you very much for your service and dedication. I also want to say thank you to all the volunteers and the public that have stepped up. We did just visit Petaluma's shelter with the governor, appreciative of our partnership with the state as well. It is an unprecedented move to evacuate up to 186,000 people in this county for sure, and we couldn't do that without the wonderful work of our Sheriff's Department, law enforcement partners, California Highway Patrol, and everyone else. We also can't operate our shelters without our partnership with the American Red Cross, our own county departments of Human Services, Health Services, and more, and the volunteers. Again, I think the silver lining to all these types of incidents are really to watch citizens rise up and help one another. We have the Santa Rosa Fairgrounds, again, accepting evacuees. We have Napa College, and thank you very much to our partner, neighbor of Napa County, the Baptist Church in Petaluma. We have the Napa Expo. We have Santa Rosa Vets, Petaluma Fairgrounds, the Petaluma Community Center, the Marin Fairgrounds, thank you very much to Marin, the New Life Church in Petaluma. There's a Presbyterian church as well in Petaluma on the west side that has a space as well. So thank you to all these partners that are out there, all the volunteers that are staffing those establishments. And like the sheriff said, be safe, stay out of the evacuation zones, be patient, be kind to one another, and we shall all get through this together. Thank you.
Just in final closing, to summarize, we are in the heart of the battle right now with this fire in Sonoma County. We ask that everybody who is outside of an evacuation zone have a plan. This fire could change direction and activity at any moment, and that could result in additional evacuations. So everyone in the surrounding area to the evacuation order area, we request that you have a plan to leave should that become necessary based on the fire. With that, we'll open up for questions for any of the representatives up here.
I know that we're still in the midst of this fire, but there are winds predicted for the next few days. Can you talk about resources and what people should be prepared for with these evacuations and these coming winds?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. We've seen an uptick in fire activity statewide over the last basically 48 hours. And as we've been saying for the last few days, we can only be successful if every civilian aids us in reducing the fire risk across the state right now. To say that conditions are a tinderbox is probably an understatement because when you put an offshore wind on it, it literally only takes one spark. We do have a statewide system of moving resources to have a standard of cover across the state that ensures that even while we're battling a 54,000 acre fire in Sonoma County, that there are fire engines throughout the state to respond to new fires and to keep them at hopefully less than 10 acres. That coordination goes on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, from the local fire station to the regional level to the Sacramento level. That coverage is always being evaluated and moved.
You mentioned that you're in the heart of this fire right now, but the fire activities and the firefighting that happened in northeast Windsor today, as the fire came down Foothill and approached the suburban neighborhoods of Windsor, the fact that that was able to be knocked down feels like a win. In 2017, there was actually a fire in Lakeville approaching Petaluma, and as I've spoken to some of those fire crews, they said that was one of the first times that they really put their foot down, and they felt that was the first win for that particular incident in 2017. Would you say that today northeast Windsor was a kind of a line in the sand and the first big win for the Kincade fire?
Yeah, so I think we really are trying to keep the fire kind of east of that valley, the 128 Russian River, and at last resort the 101 through a lot of residential areas in our behavior in the sense that it's gone on for a few days and it's making basically wind-driven pushes into these areas. Those evacuated areas. This is exactly why we asked for the evacuations of such a large area, so that those crews can get in there, they can take action, and they can really engage when and where they need to based on the wind. I would say, though, we're not out of the woods. The wind is continuing tonight. Again, as the meteorologist said, we have another wind event later in the week, and the big takeaway for everyone who's evacuated is it's going to require patience. That's our ask of the public. Because your patience results in us potentially being able to save your life.
Good question for the sheriff, if you don't mind. So about 40 minutes ago, I was here in Santa Rosa, north of 12, which is part of the evacuation zone.
Yes.
We know south of 12, it's under a warning. Now, in the evacuation zone, in a shopping center, I believe they call it the Stony Point Shopping Center, there were still some stores open. There was a fast food restaurant operating. I went to a neighborhood where people have not evacuated because they feel comfortable. What do you have to say to those folks?
Well, it's something we've been talking about all along here. Some people seem to have a sense of security, and they seem to feel that this is not going to touch their life, or they're going to stay and fight it. And I think what we saw today in Windsor really puts a fine point on why we need to listen to these evacuation warnings. We had fire right up to the backyards of homes. We had homes threatened. We had many people who would have been threatened if that area had not been evacuated. So I would really just reiterate, I realize that people can be lulled into a sense of security. They may feel that because they're in the city of Santa Rosa that they're not at risk, but clearly there is risk out there, and I ask people just to heed the warning and get out of the area.
Building on that, there's a guy we actually talked to in Windsor who has a fire hose and he's spraying down houses. He lives there. Word on that?
I'm not aware of that particular situation. When we were up in the air today on Henry 1, the helicopter, I did see a resident who had set up a fire sprinkler system on the roof of their home, and it was actively pumping water on the roof of their home. So I am aware that those kind of situations are happening out there, but I trust our partners in CAL FIRE to say that's not the best way to do it. And You cannot win. When this fire decides to make a run and the winds are pushing it, you can't win. And you're really putting yourself at risk, and you're putting those firefighters who are going to have to come in and rescue you at risk as well. Yes, sir.
Do you feel that there are still people who do not really comprehend the danger, the vast danger of this fire out there?
Well, I'll tell you, we've been doing our darndest to explain it. And so for those people who are not getting it, I don't know what it'll take. As I've talked before, we lost 24 people in 2017. There is absolutely no reason today through this fire that we should lose a human life because of evacuation. So I really want to emphasize and encourage people to evacuate. There's no reason that we should be losing life here.
And when you hear people, I'm sure you have interactions with many of these people, their frustration, what do they tell you? How do you sense their frustration?
Well, I think the frustration comes from a lack of information, and that anxiety builds, and that anxiety creates frustration. So there are still a lot of unknowns. People want to know when they're going to get back to their home. We've heard that CAL FIRE is speaking that November 7th is their target date for containment. So people hear that date and they think, oh my gosh, that's really a long ways away. Just because that's the projected containment date does not mean that that's when people will be able to repopulate areas. So I think that might cause some anxiety. I think it's important to know we are working as quickly as we can with our CAL FIRE partners and other public safety partners. As soon as an area is deemed to be safe, we will get people back in that area. We're not going to artificially keep people out of an area.
Question for the sheriff or whoever feels most qualified to answer. We saw shelters be opened and then filled quickly in Petaluma today. If there are any more mandatory evacuations, for example, if Calistoga were to become a mandatory evacuation, are you already working on additional shelters in other areas like Marin or beyond?
Supervisor?
That's a great question, and yeah, short answer is yes, we are. The contingency plans are always additive. We're always looking to add those other areas, and I think as you notice from the shelters that I listed that are open, both in Marin, Sonoma, and Napa counties, and I forgot to mention that Alameda County Fairgrounds is taking large animals. It's a regional approach. When we have such a large swath of Sonoma County in an evacuation area, that limits the ability of us to have enough shelters within the county. We have to. Petaluma is doing a great job. There's a lot of facilities down there because they're out of harm's way right now. But we really need to rely on our neighbors, the other counties, the other cities that are out there. But we're constantly looking to make sure that we have adequate resources going forward.
An additional question on that, adding on that, we came up here through Marin. Basically, the whole county currently doesn't have power. How much does that complicate this shelter situation?
It doesn't help, obviously. I think it just makes things more difficult, especially on the shelter side. I think we've worked hard to make sure that we get generators in our facilities. Those were not common, and this is going forward in California. We need to make sure that we're prepared. This county learned a lesson the hard way 2 years ago. We've done a lot of preparation. I know our neighbors also share in making sure that they're as prepared going forward. Just because the fire is here in Sonoma County this year doesn't mean it won't happen somewhere else, and I know Marin is very much aware of their surroundings. So yeah, the power outage does not help. I just listened to the PG&E press conference on the way up here. There looks like they're going to start re-energization in some areas, and I hope that they concentrate, and we'll ask them to concentrate on those areas that have shelters so we make sure that our residents are not at a further disadvantage.
This is probably a question for you, John. Sure. So we know that fighting fires is very, very physical work, and now we've been at it for several days, and unfortunately the containment number went down. When do you start to get concerned about the women and men on the front lines suffering from fatigue?
Sure, that's a great question. A fire department really is it's people, right? And there's no substitute for the hard work that is done. The schedule that we work is 24 hours on, 24 hours off, and that's the most effective way to staff a fire because the amount of time it takes to ramp up, brief, get supplies, get to the line, and then engage. We can also make big strides when there is calmer winds and the temperatures come down on those 24-hour shifts. That allows us to also rest crews for 24 hours off on the next operational period. So it allows firefighters some reprieve, essentially a full day to overcome the physical labor of what they've been doing. I will say, we have additional resources now coming from outside the state. And the more resources we get in, the more work that can be done on those 24-hour shifts. So it does really come down to resources and boots on the ground, and that's why getting additional resources in here is such a priority.
Can you talk about, there have been several fires around the Bay Area just today.
Yeah.
How did those fires tax your resources, and how do you keep one up here?
Yeah, I mean, I think the bottom line in California and the United States, there's a limited number of fire resources. It's a finite number when you go to the state or to the national level. So at the end of the day, when there's more fires that break out, resources have to get sent, and those initial attack resources then are committed to an incident themselves. The other thing is, we have a large air fleet in California, and our air fleet is really designed to get to fires quickly and try to slow them down while they're small. So while some of the engine numbers may be depleted statewide, those aircrafts on average can get to any part of California within 20 minutes and stop the progression of that fire. So that's on the initial attack, we call it. Those are one of the most effective tools we have are those aircraft to knock the heat out of it until crews get there.
The last couple of years, we have heard this phrase over and over again from veteran firefighters. We've never seen anything like this. Is this what you're encountering once again this year? Are these things you've never seen before to some degree?
Yeah, I think because of what we've seen over the last 3 years in California, we've definitely become a little bit more immune to the scale, scope, and frequency of these fires across the state. I think on the negative side is just the physical, mental tax on our folks. I will say on the positive side, these crews are well versed on what these big fires look like right now in California. Unfortunately, we've had to test the mutual aid system to its extreme over the last few years, and it's the reason why, as we sit here today, 3,400 firefighters are in place with more on the way. So the frequency of these fires that is occurring over the last few years is obviously disconcerting to firefighters, but it also has exercised us to a point where today you're seeing the result of that.
And another cliche we've heard, the new normal. Is this something, and you don't have to use that term, but is this something that we have to come to expect with some apparent changes in climate?
Right. So I think we live in a temperate climate that's the Mediterranean climate that does want to burn at the end of the day. Compound with that with the fact of some climactic changes with where Californians live and the population going from 10,000 to 40,000 in the last 100 years. And that all kind of combines into that ball of wax, which complicates the frequency, intensity, and kind of scope of these fires. So that term gets thrown around there. I think for us, it's that time of year in October that we expect the potential for the large and damaging fires now.
Question for Steve.
We'll take this one, and then after that we'll go to Q&As.
On the way up, we encountered some people who were trying to travel through here from out of state. Can you talk about what people should be aware of? I mean, I know 101 is currently closed. What people should be aware of, especially tomorrow is Monday.
Well, obviously, the sheriffs have helped greatly in sending out emergency alerts, and we need to heed that. I mean, whenever you travel, especially out of state, we always recommend that you kind of look at the areas. There's tons of ways you can call. Caltrans has a number that talks about the roads and the road conditions, and they're linked directly with the Highway Patrol. So if we close it for any reason, they get the information. You can go to any of our websites. We obviously want the people to stay out of the area. As we started this briefing, we're bringing resources in from out of state now, and we need these roadways clear. So we just ask that if you are traveling, you should be looking ahead, looking at where you're going, what are you going to deal with, and plan ahead. The best thing you can do is plan ahead and look at those and try and prevent it. And as you mentioned, tomorrow we're going into the work week, and that's going to create a great deal of work. And luckily, a lot of people have heeded the advice of evacuating. We saw the amount of traffic that left, and we greatly appreciate that. But unfortunately, even though the work week starts, this fire's still going on. And so we're just asking you to kind of remain clear of the area, allow the firefighters and all the emergency responders to continue to do their work, and allow us to fight this as best we can and remain clear.
All right, we will conclude the press conference now. Please stick around for the Spanish language version. Representatives from all the agencies behind me will now be available for one-on-one interviews. Thank you.